What's good, everybody? It's Alex Comunio here, and we're back with episode 55 of the Money Monopolizers podcast. And I'm here with my co-host, Marlon Walls. Marlon, how you doing today, bro?
I'm doing good, bro. See, you got like a change of scenery back there. Where you at?
So what you mean? I don't know.
I don't see your classic tree right now either.
It's right there.
Oh, I gotta look. Nah, bro. Just for everybody, just to understand, it's crazy. We're in the same house right now. Alex came down to visit for a bit, so we both in Houston. We're a little too wide to fit in the same screen, so hey, it's gonna make it work. But nah, I'm doing good overall, man. I think that all of our properties that we own we're trying to sell right now are in competition with each other as far as like trying to see who can take the longest to sell. Because I see that each and every one of them, I think the mobile home, the house in San Antonio, and mine back in Indiana are all like in the process of closing, and everybody's getting delayed. It's crazy, but I know sooner or later we're gonna get some nice checks coming through. So it's been a waiting game right now. But overall, I've been chilling. We've been pretty good. I ain't got too much, bro. How you been?
Been good, man. Life is good. I can't complain at all. I'm definitely looking forward to getting going with these houses getting sold. Hopefully in this next week we'll be closing on that flip, and then we can get into the next one. But other than that, man, it's been same old, same old. If you want to really know, you could just go listen back to the last 3 episodes. It's been the same.
Exactly.
But other than that, I think that it's not really much going on. I'm just staying busy, which is always the same thing. So, but other than that, we had a great episode today. It was a pretty long. It was a longer episode.
We'll see how long it is after editing. Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to see. But it was definitely a longer episode. But it was a great episode in terms of everything we got into. We talked to Ericka Williams, and she is she says she wants to be known as, the media and real estate person that's also involved in trucking. But yeah, she's doing a bunch of stuff. She's, big on YouTube, and I think she said that she has over like 7 million YouTube views on her videos, and she, made $180,000 off of YouTube last year. So, we definitely got into that in terms of like how she's been able to monetize YouTube and monetize the internet, and how to actually do that, and what she's doing with that money, converting it into, her or she's using it to invest in real estate and then trucking, and then also doing that for other people. So, she's doing a lot, and we definitely got into a lot. So there's definitely a lot to unpack in this episode, but it was a good episode. It was a good. What did you think of it?
I think she provided a whole lot of value. You can really have to listen to this one probably a couple of times because she went through a whole lot of information. So it's probably some stuff will go over your head the first time you hear it just because it was so much at once. But I think there's a lot of value packed in this episode. I think she really gave like a blueprint of how she got started, and as well as why she was able to have as much success as she was. She's talking about how she started up YouTube and just being authentic on there from the get-go, and then how that leads to different opportunities for her later on with her investments, with getting into real estate, trucking, and her other businesses and everything. So I think she laid out a lot of information. So it's full of value for people to take heed to. So I'm really hoping people gain a lot out of this one.
Yeah, I think if you really want to, if making money online is something you're interested in, something you have been interested in, I think that was the primary focus of this episode. So you could definitely, we'll get a lot of value from that, and just a lot of gems in regards to business and entrepreneurship as well. So there was a ton of value in here. So let's get right into it though. Hey, Ericka, how you doing today?
How you doing?
We doing good. We doing good. Happy to have you on here. I know you got a lot going on, so we definitely want to get into, everything that you got going on, and the bulk of your story, and how you got into where you are today. But usually how we start, we usually want to, get into your upbringing and your background with money. So do you mind like kind of getting into that and telling us how that was for you growing up in regards to finances at home, and just even your perception and how it changed, and also, get into what your business looks like today after?
For sure. So a lot of people know I'm from the Carolinas, but I was a military kid, so lived in Alaska, lived in Tennessee, lived in Maryland a bit, but mostly North Carolina. Parents were together. When they divorced, my mom moved into this really great neighborhood in North Carolina near Fort Bragg. From that region, we were from a family that owns farms and businesses and cheap rental properties, and we still do that to this day. So But a big thing that kind of played into that was in the 1980s, kind of the farming bust, and everybody in our family was kind of cramped into like a couple houses, and they're like, all right, everybody, this is the worst. Everybody, let's go do. And so we had a lot of people go join the military. A lot of uncles and cousins became police officers, and some became nurses. Some moms became nurses. So,
Gotcha.
big community push.
So was it, I guess, I mean, you talk about you have farms and rental properties and all that. Did you grow up kind of in or environment that encouraged you to go to school, get a degree, and take on debt? Or was it more so, hey, you know, get some assets, you know, entrepreneurship is the way to go? How did that look like as a kid? What were you encouraged?
So the biggest thing I can tell people is Cash Flow Quadrant from Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's the best book ever because it helped me understand my family. So we have 5 girls and 1 cousin that's married in. So 6 girls, like 20 boys, just a bunch of boys. And so everybody followed that path ever since the 1980s. There's a book about like if something traumatic happens and it shifts the family, everybody kind of repeats a cycle. So we had all these young men in our family go straight into the military, do their 4 years, come out. Now they have cash to buy a house and have a car and start from there. All the girls were pushed to go to school. You guys, no, don't do what I mean. Go to school. Now, when one of the girls disobeyed, she went, and me and my sister, of course, didn't go. And but the ideal ultimately was still safe, secure job. So once I left college, when I was done with college, it was like, okay, now you can go be an officer for 4 years. You can go it's safer than enlisted. See, you know, you can go get this safe, secure job or a government job on Fort Bragg, and then you can meet somebody nice. And I mean, it's literally very security based, even though grandpa had a farm and a juke joint, even though grandma used to be selling fish plates on Saturdays to raise money for, you know, the rent and everything, right? Because she had all these daughters, people always walked by on this place and bought fish plates. So you always like, and this is after grandpa died, but so you always are like, y'all have always been doing entrepreneurial things.
Right. So it sounds like when you were growing up, there was entrepreneurship all throughout your family, but they try to keep it mainly in the guy's side of the family. So, but for you, you was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I guess you see all these things that are going on. Like you see the success that they can have. You like, just because I'm a female doesn't mean I can't do it too. Like I can go get it my own way. Especially like you said by seeing, you said it was your cousin.
Yep.
Yeah, by seeing him do something like that sounds so bizarre, like talking to people in China, being able to look in the catalog and literally get a store up and running. You see that things are possible. I think that's one thing that most people are missing, especially in our Black community, is that we don't get to see these things that other people are doing that's very obtainable for anybody. But if we don't see these things, like we don't see businesses being built in our communities by people that are around us, we're not ever going to think that we can amount to it. But just by seeing it, you're able to actually get started and pretty much build up your business to where they are today.
I want to comment too on what she had said too, because you had mentioned the cash flow quadrant, and I really think just having that perspective is really good at that young age, and being able to see different ways that people are making money and kind of how, you know, what you can kind of relate to more. That's a really interesting and unique perspective that a lot of people aren't able to even get. So the fact that you were able to see that, I'm sure, you know, that led you to kind of even where you are today in terms of like knowing, hey, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to be an employee. I want to be a business owner. I want to be on the right side of the quadrant. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah.
No, that's a good point, because that's one of Alex's favorite books of all time, because it does really like lay a foundational work of understanding the different mindsets of the different quadrants, like and understand that there are different quadrants to make money out of, and you don't have to just be an employee or just go down that path because that's what your parents were doing or that's what they were encouraging you to do. Like, you know, that there's other avenues and anybody is available to take those avenues.
I think the best line in the book somewhere it says they can only give you an answer from their place of security, right? So my family's super security focused, and so if I'm frustrated, I don't know what to do, I've hit rock bottom. Well, you can still go in the army. You can still go get a government job. You can still go do it, right? Because it's that security, but like that's the only answer they can give you. Right. And so a lot of times people unfortunately live in families where nobody's a business owner. So you're trying to do something different, and it culturally clashes, and it also, they can't offer you any advice. And so you're pulling away from, we're very tribal in America, white, Black, whoever, we're very tribal. If you meet a family of all white firefighters and the one brother wants to go be a cop, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Right. Okay. You know, because they're breaking from tradition. And so it's the same thing in the African American family. We actually have a wall of honor where we have like, I think it's all the way back to like the Civil War. We have someone who's fought in every war in America that America's had. And so like for me to go, no, I'm not gonna do military at all. No, I'm good. I'm good. It's like, what?
So after that, then what was the next thing you did after you said, okay, I don't want to go to school? What was like that first entrepreneurship?
Well, I went to college at East Carolina University. And so while I was there, unfortunately, my senior year, my grandmother and my father died 6 months of each other. So I had a little bit of inheritance, not a lot. And I used that money in between volunteering for the Red Cross. I used that money to start a coffee shop in Fayetteville, North Carolina, across from a historically black college called Fayetteville State University. And it's Sunset Coffee. Anybody can Google it and see it back in the day. And I was there, and it was like exciting to see young black people that were like a little bit younger than me come in and be like, you own this? I remember there were people I actually fell out of friendship with because they didn't believe. They're like, you don't own this. Stop lying. Where you get this money from, right? And I remember telling this guy, like, we ain't never gotta speak, right? because he really was insulted at the ideal that like it wasn't my family's, it was mine. And that worked great for 2 years. It was fun. It was exciting. And the roaster who roasted my beans said, hey, honey, to make money and make this really work long term, you need to be selling beans online. There's this whole setup you can do on Amazon.com. Let me show you. Let me teach you. And I was like, no. And they're like, you really need to do this. And this was right before it became like really like Amazon.com, right? I started reading the 4-Hour Work Week and I was like, no. And sure enough, the city started tearing up that road across from Fayetteville State through government contracts and, revitalizing that part of town. And me and 4 other businesses on that block actually closed because the students couldn't safely get across the street. So they had to drive or go around, or they had to run across the street with their backpack on. And it was already like stressful for them because the Mercs kind of have a bad history. And so for me, it was like, okay, man, close my shop. What am I going to do? And I had got out of a relationship where, long story short, we didn't get married. And so I flipped a coin. I said, I'm going to go to Nashville, Tennessee or Austin, Texas, because I had gone there with some friends. And some friends were like, oh yeah, we're in Killeen. It's so close. I was like, oh, really? But I flipped the coin, and the coin, of course, flipped for Austin. So I get here. I'm mad with them because I realized Killeen is not close to Austin at all. I was so hot. I was mad. I was there for 6 months in a sales job, like, I'm ready to go. But when I tried to get back into having a job. I went to go be an apartment manager, a billings manager in Austin. And I was like trying so hard to get back into having a job, and I delivered pizzas at night. What was funny is that both jobs, people kept saying, why are you here? You seem like you can go do something else. Why are you here? And I would laugh because I go, I know. like I know I could go be somewhere else. I just didn't have my funds together yet. And so when I took my second job delivering pizzas, I learned this whole real estate area of Austin. Like to a T, I learned it, right? So there was a painting issue at our complex. It's a 700 unit complex. We're changing it. We're changing paint. We're changing colors. We're painting doors. And we talked to the management. We said, listen, we just did the math. If you just hire one painter at $50,000 a year, and he come to work from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and all he do is paint every single day, we will be able to manage and save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. She looks at me like, who are you? Why are you talking to me? She was the actual property investor. She bought the property, her and her family. And she goes, no, we'll just outsource it. And just dismiss me like I was stupid, right? It ended up costing them $450,000 from the outsourcing, because instead of just 50 apartments moving out that summer, 150 moved out. So now they had to triple, and this is on top of also painting some exterior colors. So the guy that came in, he was like 32, and I was like, how are you doing this company? He was like, just did. I was like, let me take you to lunch. So immediately after that day, I called my friend. I said, listen, we're going to start a paint company. And my friend Andrew Bryant is a really great sales guy. He knocked 10,000 doors in Dallas. That's an award he got. And so we just started getting painting jobs, getting fencing jobs. And I was able to check the phone here and there. And eventually I ended up quitting because we were making so much money. I could just answer the phone and take payments, right? And I got my real estate license at the same time. So I was doing this grand exit, like double time. I'm out, right? And in that transition, like I was in the interview with the company, like, why should we put you at our real estate firm? And I just described this whole area, and they're like, how do you know that area so well? You just got here to Texas. I'm like, I delivered pizza that night. Gotta know the area. Gotta know the area to get in it, right? And so for over the next like 2 years, it was a really great learning experience on running a business. It made me feel so at peace because I was growing my YouTube. I was documenting my journey. I was just super excited about Texas. I mean, we were like two-stepping, like I was with a church single group. We were two-stepping every Friday, tubing down the river every Saturday. You know, Sundays were a blast. And I was really feeling like I was living my purpose. Well, of course, like anything, I ended up having, before a lot of that started, I had an emergency appendix story. So like my appendix is about to burst. I'm crawling into the hospital. I get in there and they're like, oh, you probably got food poisoning. No, I'm pretty sure something bad's going on in my stomach right here. So they're like, oh, just lay down. And about 1 o'clock, the doctor, he's like a fresh-faced doctor from probably some school maybe a year or so ago. And he's like, so your appendix is about to burst. And every doctor that could do surgery has left about an hour and 30 minutes ago. So we're going to give you all this morphine, knock you out, and get you up at the first thing and be the first surgery to be done in the morning. So to me, I'm just in pain. So I'm like, sure, whatever. I'm out. I wake up in the morning. They're like, got me scribbling my name. And I go through the surgery. They come in my room and go, ma'am, you don't have insurance. I said, oh, no, I don't have it. This whole bill is $46,000. And I go, what? And I'm looking there looking pitiful because I'm in pain. And sure enough, they go downstairs and they have this form, this application that said financial hardship form, because this is a Catholic church. Seton Medical is Catholic. And so I fill it out and they go, man, you're in luck. You're one of the surgeries we're going to absolutely waive. The only thing you have to pay for is the morphine. I was like, well, y'all shot me up with that morphine because you took too long, right? So I ended up having to pay maybe less than $60 for morphine or something like that in the end. But I was just like, I never want to be in a position where I'm like, oh my God, $46,000, I'm going to be bankrupt. So, that happened. And then on the back, while I was recovering, I had money that I kept putting in the lending club. I kept putting in the stock market. And so I was like, all that pizza delivery money that people were laughing about, it was paying me dividends and I was able to liquidate some different shares because I had put that money away. And so the journey in itself has been up and down, up and down, up and down. But overall, what I learned is like, once you kind of run a business, going back to employee status is essentially very hard. Well, then YouTube, I ended up having like $50,000 in sales, consulting, courses, everything. And I was like, what? No. I was about to take a job for $70K a year to plan parties because I had a rough 2 months. And I just made $50,000 from just focusing on YouTube, launching that month, consulting calls. Just literally, it was like a ramp up for 2 weeks. I just did a ramp up for 2 weeks and made $50K. And for me, at that moment, it was like the light bulb hit. Like, okay, consistent marketing. You don't have to do launches. Just be consistent in your marketing. And then you don't have to worry about having these really bad droughts, right? Month of plenty, month of drought. Month of plenty, month of drought, right? And this is because at this point I had like sold out my share of the company to my friend, the painting company. And so I was like, I'm just gonna focus on YouTube. And then I was having those bad months, good months, bad months, good months. I was like, there has to be more consistency to this. And that's when I started really focusing on sales and marketing strategically.
But I think the biggest theme from that whole entire, soliloquy was the fact that you always were taking action. And you were always continuing to like move forward no matter, what happened in any case or any situation. It was always like, okay, what's the next step? Right. Yeah. And even with starting like the painting company, you see someone doing it and it inspires you to, okay, how can I do something similar? Right. Or I'm not sure what kind of inspired you to start with YouTube and that whole kind of, internet and the marketing and making money online and that kind of stuff. Oh, I know you mentioned like the lady, she told you need to be selling online. So I'm sure that was a big thing, but that's, again, you're taking action in that regard. Right. And then I know just one comment with that too, is I really like that strategy just because of the fact of, you mentioned you can make, you're making money off of videos like 5 years ago. Right. And that's like the beauty of like selling stuff online is because you can put in the effort, or even selling services, you put in the effort one time up front and it's like, it pays you for the rest of your life. And you don't even have to even look at it again. So that's super dope.
Yeah, I was going to go into it as well, though. Like,
Yeah.
one thing I liked with your story is that you were able to leverage your 9 to 5 in order to fuel your business, though. Like, all the business that you started was literally because of your working your 9 to 5. But every time that you go there, you go with a plan of saying, I'm not just going to deliver these pizzas. I'm going to learn the layout of the land. I mean, intentionally or unintentionally, you were able to do that. So now you're consciously looking around, able to start providing leads for you said the realtor, just like being able to be at lead source, because you know what's coming up, you know about the area, and then you start seeing you learn about painting, you learn about the fencing. A lot of things came as a result of just being intentional about how you utilize your time during your 9 to 5, because I know most people dread their 9 to 5 and always want to try to like get rid of it as fast as possible to start their business. But you use that to actually fund your business and to become more knowledgeable about the businesses that you took on as a result. And I know you mentioned YouTube a lot in that entire story. I know Alex also asked about it. Like, how did that come about, and what has that been for you? I know I'm just looking at your story, like your background a little bit. That's really played a large factor with like building your audience and like getting investments and stuff like that. So how did that come about?
So the craziest part about the whole YouTube thing is it was a group of 6 of us talking about starting YouTube channels many moons ago, right? This is like 7 years ago. And I said, all right, guys, this is gonna be so awesome if we start channels. If you do this and I do this, and like we'll cross market each other and we'll talk. And I was the only person out of 6 people that did it. And I ended up just documenting my journey and giving book reviews and giving tips on business, and kind of just kept documenting the journey. And so a lot of my earlier stuff is super motivational. So people watched it for that. And as I started going on my journey, I started just giving people like what was going on behind the scenes. And what was funny is I had this one time and the money, like I'm doing an income report later this year on purpose, just not a brag, but a brag. Because I went to lunch with somebody and they were like, oh, you still doing that little YouTube channel? I said, well, that little YouTube channel paid me 180 grand last year. And that her mouth was like, because, she's a big nurse. Like, she's not a little nurse. She's a nurse that makes like 100 racks, right? So when I told her I made it 180, it was like I just poo-pooed in her cereal, right? And it was funny because my friends who live here in Austin have seen me go up and down, up and down, up and down, like just a lot of change. They're like, just get a job. like instead of going through all this and hustling and marketing, just get a job. And I was like, that month that I made that 50K, I was like, this is why I'm not getting another job. You can always you can start a million businesses. You could only work 2 jobs without like killing yourself. I worked like 3 one time, and like my appendix about went out, right? And it did. And so what I tell people is like the YouTube, sharing that journey, that there's people that look like me anywhere you go doing this, was one of those things where community, people wanted somewhere to go. You're trying to tell your family about business ideas. They're looking at you crazy. So then you come on, this girl's talking about doing business, and people in the chat are talking about doing business, and people in the Facebook group are talking about doing business. It actually just changes that for them. Do you know what I mean? They're not alone. There are people out there who are just like them or thinking like them.
Yeah.
So the YouTube really was super, super impactful. And I don't run YouTube like for YouTube. I run YouTube for me. Now, prime example, what do I mean? If you don't have an email list, you don't have a business. And this was many humans ago. Ryan Dice, he's here in Austin, Texas. People don't really realize that. And so is Brian Moran. They've been here in Austin for years now. And I remember watching a video, and he was like, if you don't have an email list, you don't have a business, because YouTube can cut you off any day. Facebook, Instagram, all of them. And people were like, oh, you're so dramatic, Ericka. And I remember the next month, I forgot her name, was like Alex Keaton or something, but Beaton or whatever, they cut her YouTube channel. And she didn't know why. She was like losing it, right? She was like, venting on Facebook. But what was so amazing about her story is I got an email. I was on her email list. I didn't realize I was on there. Hey, you guys, we lost the YouTube channel. We don't know what happened, but thank you guys for those who joined the $9.99 membership. Well, I go in there. There's 1,000 people in there.
Yeah.
So is she hurting or not? Right? She's okay. She's gonna be just fine. Okay, like every dollar, 10 you do the math for $10 times 1,000 people. She's okay. She was upset, but she will start over. But all this whole thing taught me, as I was watching people literally lose their YouTube channels. Hey guys, you cannot. Every third-party platform performs the same. They will do whatever they need to do to protect their brand. Yeah. Now, on Facebook, I'm not going to leave Facebook alone. Reason I haven't been doubled down on Facebook, there was a Black hip hop magazine, and it was kind of like, I'm trying to think of the name, but it had like 300,000 likes. It had people paying like $10 a month to hear the interviews on there. The company themselves, they actually had staff in New York, like 4 or 5 people on staff getting these interviews. They get interviews with rappers. They go on radio stations. And guess what happened? Facebook killed their fan page. Just killed it and didn't give it back. Because he went from 300,000, I think, that month to like 700,000. So he had like doubled in size. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And right when it got about 700,000, Facebook killed it. It went away with no excuse. There was no one they could talk to. I mean, the guy was out there making YouTube videos crying about how he had this big Facebook page and he had staff, and they took away his business. And how crazy did that sound? Because the first thing everybody asked him was, where's your email list? I kid you not. He was like, we just started making an email list. I said, you had 300,000 people for a year and a half? You hiring staff and you didn't have an email list? And then you petitioning, you want to sue Facebook? Hey, you guys, help us sue Facebook. I'm like, sir, that was on you. That's their platform.
Yeah.
That's not your website. That's not you don't own that. And so for me, what I keep trying to get people to understand is like, when I teach in my YouTube course and I teach in my classes, is like, you have to have an email list. There has to be a way, if something happens to you, people can communicate with you. Mm-hmm. Because that's not your platform. Yeah. Now, I can say you can go have your own website. It's rare that you get your website taken down unless you're just doing something illegal. But that's the thing. I wanted people to get away from that. It's free traffic. I'm just going on Instagram. I'm just going on Facebook. No. You have to build it. Like, you have to really build a business. If you treat it like a hobby, you'll get paid like a hobby. If you treat it like a business, you'll get paid like a business. And that's what people are learning, the hard way these last 2 years.
I think that speaks to really the concept of ownership, and just in the in the sense that, these platforms like all these social media platforms, and including YouTube, they're just platforms. I mean, you don't even own any of your followers. You're just honestly, it's just a tool to leverage them, to get them, the goal is to be able to send them to somewhere you actually own, or somewhere you can actually always communicate with them, and you have kind of control of that relationship, because everything is direct to consumer now. That's just kind of how we're, how society's transitioning. And especially too, when you think back like a few years ago, imagine, they had the whole net neutrality thing. Whenever, if that would have actually happened, then a whole bunch of people would have been SOL, because now it's like a whole bunch of people that were only using, YouTube and stuff because it's free, and now they have to start paying for it. They're not going to use it. But had you sent them already somewhere else, then you would have been a lot better off. But that's a really good point to make if someone is trying to actually monetize something online, or sell products or even services online, or send, have some sort of social proof online, to make sure you're sending them somewhere.
Yep. And I mean, I'm just reemphasizing everything you're saying, though, because me and Alex talk about this all the time, is that honestly, Instagram is using us as a tool. Like, they use us and see us as somebody that's going to keep other people on their platform longer. Now, they have full control to say, if you're not doing what we want you to do, we can instantly kick you out. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Those are all platforms that they're building their own, their own success, their own millions off of us using it. Like, and they don't approve of what we're doing, then it's like, hey, they can kick you out because they have a million more influencers out there that are going to be able to keep bringing in revenue. I think that also brought up a good point, though, is that you don't need to have 300,000 in order to be able to make a nice living for yourself from the people that are the true supporters of you. Because I know for a fact, if you start a group that costs, and people are joining in, those are the ones who are like the loyal followers. They're going to be with you. They stick in, like, they really appreciate and approve of what you're doing, and they want to they can probably feed back into you just for what you've been doing. So if you can build that type of base, that's something that will lead you to a lot more successes. I mean, like, probably potential investment opportunities even. So I'm pretty sure is that kind of like what you did as well, like as far as with your YouTube, like you've been using it as far as to build your base. So how have you done that?
Well, it's a little bit of layers to it. What I tell people when I say I raised $1.9 million last year, the past 2 years, what I really did is I created a relationship with people, because this is important part of investment. So there's a thing called a blind fund. I didn't do that. Right. So that's just SEC, just in case you listen. I didn't do that part. Right. A blind fund is another level. What I did is I went and I did about 52 flights last year and the year before. And I would go have events and I'd meet people in person. I shake hands. I have a boat party that happens every year. People come and meet me. And I raise money from those relationships, right? So, and that was just me. And that was me every day turning people away that I didn't think were a good fit, right? So people were like, hey, I got 20K, I got 30K. I'm like, I don't think you're a good fit. I just don't think you're a good fit. And because you have to have that. You have to have a category, a list of how you'll work with people and if people are capable. So I have people in my investment club who, to get into the truck deal when I was opening up for the trucks was 5K or 10K. And we had people who did straight up 20K, like partnerships with me. What I learned in that is anything less than 5K, I could not deal with. We had one or two people who I allowed to come in on like $1,000 or $2,000 for some of the rental properties. And to this day, those are the most difficult members to this day. So what you have to understand is usually if somebody's on there, they're like, I got this 1,000 and I'm going to put it in something. It better cut me money every month. You're going to have to work 10 times harder for that person that gave you 1,000 than the person that gave you 20,000. Yeah. I have a person right now who gave $100,000 to me over various projects last year. They don't even show up for the quarterly meetings. They don't even show up in the Slack. They don't even call me. They're like, oh, okay. You sent me email? Good. Yeah. I've had people get 50K. Don't even hear from them. People that gave me 30, don't even hear from them. I have one person gave me 20. I think he comes to one of the meetings a year. So there's levels to it, and I could do a whole class on that, but I'm not. But what you have to understand is the partnership and opportunity is there. If you are known, liked, and trust, if people trust you, you do what you say you're going to do. You're over communicate with them. And you're very transparent. You know, people have come to his office and be like, oh, this is your real office. Like, yeah, we really show up to work here every day. Like, not every day, but we're in here working to provide returns for our investors. That's all you have to do, right? And people really overcomplicate that. Now, same thing with what we were talking about previously. When you see all these people in there and they're like, I make 10K a month, and people are like, oh, those are lies. Not really. I mean, I love doing this little, I have to do the little math on my paper to think about it. But literally, I used to go 10K, okay? 10K. So if you're doing YouTube, let's say you're already going to get your $1,000 check from YouTube. So let's just go ahead and knock off that 1,000. So now you're at 900. Okay, so out of the 900, let's say you have a product that's not $100. Let's just make it easy. All right. I'm going to use my calculator because I don't want y'all to be later. Somebody be like, she was off on her numbers. Okay, so divided by 100, that's 90 people a month, right? And you're like, oh, that's a lot, Ericka. Now let's kick it down even more. Let's say you have a $500 product. That's 18 people a month, right? You've seen how popular credit repair is and how more popular it's going to be in the next 3 years because of this Rona, right? That's easy. That's an easy sale. Even if I had like a $997 product, which people love talking about that's 9 people. Right? Let's say you do a monthly coaching that's like $1,500. That's 6 people. So when you see these young guys who are out here like, yeah, I make 10K a month, and we're like, no way, it's possible.
Yeah.
It's just math. It's just reaching out to people. It's just communication. It's just right now I have a Facebook group, and this guy used to have a Facebook group. Like I'm gonna tell you right now, Facebook groups, big money. Paid Facebook groups is big money, right? And I'm gonna be easy on it because I want Facebook looking for me. But if you have, there's 2 groups I'm in. I pay $250 a month to be in there. There are 283 people in there, paying $250 a month. That's 70 grand a month. And the guys, it's 3 of them. They come in there and they do live talks. They in there chatting all the time. They're in there communicating, and people are like, well, I just need one more talk. And it'll go on live. Hey, what's up? Can 3 dudes split 70K a month? I think so. And get it done. I think they'll be okay. I'm in another group where we pay 125. I think in that group I have, is there 500 people in there? There's like 575 or something like that. That person's also making $71,000 a month. So the possibility is, let's say somebody just pays you $25 a month to be in there, and you got 1,000 people, because you're gonna get more when you have smaller amounts. That's $25,000 a month. I have a Facebook group, people pay $10, and people still be, oh my God, can you cancel my thing? Oh my God, I'm trying to save money. I'm like, $10 baby? Okay, let's go ahead and let you out. Let's go ahead and get you out. I have, I think, 400 people in that one. So $10 times 4 people is like 4,000. There is another group I know of that people pay 1,000 to be in there, but it's for a certain real estate company in Colorado. I think there's maybe 100 in there.
Yeah.
So money's everywhere. It depends on the level of value you're giving people.
Yeah, and that's really what I wanted to hit. That's what I wanted to hit on, that last exact point that you made, because I know people can hear this and be like, oh man, I don't have any expertise in real estate or finance or money. It's like, that's not what you have to do. It's just finding whatever you're interested in, something you feel like you have some expertise in, or some niche that you have, some liking to, and providing value to some people in a way that's unique. That's how you can monetize online. And, that's when you're able to kind of, after you provided, so much value for a certain amount of time, people won't have a problem paying you, that 10, that 20, or even $500 a month, depending on the amount of value that you're giving them. And, obviously if you can scale that to, a certain a few hundred, people paying you that amount, you're going to be well off. So that's a really great thing. So as far as the, what's it called that you've been cause you mentioned an investment group, right? So you have you manage an investment group. So I know you are, of course, involved.
I manage limited liability partnerships.
Okay.
Just in case anybody ever comes back and I manage limited liability partnerships.
Yeah, we gotta make sure that's said the right way. So as far as that, is that more so like, because I know you do the trucking and you do the real estate. So is that essentially what you're investing in with, with these people's money?
For sure. So what I do is I identify a product, identify whether it's real estate or a truck, and then I present it to our group, and people who want to come in, they come in at the exact price points. So prime example, we have like 6 properties in Detroit, a duplex in Cleveland, and a property here in Texas. So, hey, this property is $30K, taking all offers for 10 or 20%. Okay, then we get a certain number of people in the house. And then as our property manager takes care of it, every quarterly, they get a check, right? And it's just divided up across the percentages. Super simple, right? And what I tell people is having integrity, and because, you could spend 20 years building your name in 5 minutes to lose it.
Yeah.
Right? And the prime example I give, and this isn't slapping on Beyonce's daddy. Beyonce's daddy was a millionaire and a businessman way before he cheated on Beyonce's mom. But that's all we know of him. Oh, he cheated on Beyonce's mama. He gone. He out of there. She fired him. And it's like, you just lost 30 years of being one of the most successful Houston business Black men ever, because your reputation matters. And I always say that to people. People, if you go Google some of the accomplishments of Beyonce's dad, you'll see what I mean. My goal at all times is to serve you and serve me, right? So if I'm serving you well, and this is what we're going to bring it up to talk about value. A lot of people are like, oh, I just quoted some books. Yeah, I gave people value. No. The bar is very low at this current time for what is value. I read a viral post the other day where this one was like, I'm not teaching my kids to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, yes, sir. That's ridiculous. That's country. And I'm like, in the future, about 10 years from now, the kids who do say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, who put your clothes on right, who brush your hair when you come out the house, not in pajamas. It'd just be so easy to win. I mean, I was somewhere in a store and I saw people in their pajamas. I'm like, what level of depression are we on that we outside in pajamas? This ain't college. What's going on? Even in college, East Carolina was like, look, y'all, wrap up these pajamas, put on clothes, right? The level of value, when I tell you that the value I put in these videos will pay me for years, and I mean it. The last 2 years, what I did, I'm a super connector. There's a great book called Super Connectors. Go read it. I don't know everything, but I will work my hardest to connect you to somebody who does know it, right? I'm not a daily operations person. I hate daily operations. It's the worst. But I will put people in this office and in this positions so that daily operations gets done, right? You have to work within your strengths. And so for prime example, on Super Connectors, I brought on people who I thought had what people needed in the marketplace, whether that's trading stocks, fitness, tech writing, tech jobs. And I brought them in, and one of them is Terry Gioma, Travel and Trade. And she was, for 4 months, she was the #1 on Teachable, like #1 sales of all on Teachable. I made 6 figures off that. And I don't quote it to say, oh, look, I made all this money in affiliate marketing. I made it because I brought on a woman who was a wonderful, excellent teacher And people are out here teaching stock trading for 20K a month, 20K, 30K, 50K, and she's teaching for 2 and 5. And I'm bringing her on, connecting with people, and people are connecting. So, you know, I went to one of her events and I walked in the room, people were like, yo, Ericka, I'm in here because of you, right? And I'm like, thanks. But really my job is just to facilitate you getting to what you need, right? I'm not on YouTube for the, I'm gonna be famous. Like miss me with that. Once you hit about 200, 300 grand, the numbers and money are different. And just being very honest, like men and women are different in that way too, right? Men are like, let's dominate, we're gonna take over whole cities. And I'm like, cool, yeah, you do that, baby. Like buy up all of Houston. Women are inherently, and there's several books on this, we get to a level of, can this take care of my family and the next generation? Can I travel a bunch? This is good. And this is like something in our nature, and that's, the Lord made us that way, and that's great. Of course, there's red herrings. There's always somebody fussing me about that. But I realized the deeper I got into business, I got a sense of joy connecting people. Like, hey, I got to do all that. I don't got to know all that. And I want people to understand that as I'm doing all these different investments, they're just paper. You know, an LLC is just paper. A deed is just paper. And once you start wrapping your head around stocks and investments and different things, you're like, oh, okay. Like it becomes more normal talk. And the reason I even started YouTube is I would talk about conversations with people like, I've never heard of that. And me and my family talk about that every other week. And so it's just a lack of exposure on a lot of people's parts. So
what I'm seeing, I think one major thing that people would say that you're lucky for is always like they would say that, oh, you're lucky because you're able to go ask people for money, and then people are like, will give you money for like your investments or anything. But I think it's much more fundamental than that. Like you had to break it down and be like, how long you've been doing YouTube for a while. Secondly, you are you're like pretty much telling people about your journey. So they're getting to see your face. They're getting to see your authentic and transparent self. They'll be able to like almost feel like they know you in a way. Like you're pretty much building a rapport with people right out the gate. And so now people who are joining you on your journey and just watching you as you continue to evolve and then go and find different investment opportunities, people want to be a part of somebody that they feel like they already know anyway. So you're pretty much paving a path for yourself in order to be able to gain these investments once you finally ask for them, because you've been providing value and you've been like pretty much showing them your authentic self. So now they feel like they can trust somebody who they feel like they know. And so now it's not luck anymore. It's like I've been preparing for this moment. And so now all I have to do is pull the trigger, and it's just like money is coming towards you, but you have prepared for that all the way up until that moment.
Part of the theory, what cracks me up about people like, oh man, you're just asking for money, is they're missing the value exchange of management, property management, real estate management, investment management. They're missing the part of people already owning businesses and being down this road before. People, if they're smart, in the next couple of years, you're going to get near somebody that's got the money, or get near somebody who has a direction they're going. Right? There's a lot of people just out here floating. And what I tell people is like, me buying this land here in Texas, when I'm planning on buying a laundromat and a couple of acres and buying a couple of duplexes, the people that are on my staff are going to do nothing but prosper from that. Right? The people in that circle are going to do nothing but prosper from that. And that should be your goal whenever you start any investment club, any investment thing. We're all going to eat.
Right.
We're all going to live good. The biggest thing I want people to understand is they've got to let go of that very, I'm gonna just show it work, I'm gonna get a check, and then boom, I'm gonna do it all by myself. I'm gonna do it Lone Ranger style. Like that just doesn't work. It requires staff and systems.
Sound like a self-employed versus a business owner.
Yeah. Like only I can do it. That it's so great, right? And it's like, you know, you can't be in 7 places at once. You just can't. And somebody can do it 80% as well. Great, right? So a lot of times what people don't understand is, I remember I was on Instagram, and Instagram's not my preferred method. And so I would think really hard on these posts. I would post like thinking of a paragraph, I'm typing it in. And then it wouldn't get that many likes. I got people on my staff posting just a bunch of nothing. And people are like. And I started laughing because I'm like, look at you over stressing about something that's a simple daily task. And people on your staff are like, here, boom, throwing it out there. And people like it. So a lot of times what people end up doing is working themselves into a rut or wearing themselves out trying to have this perfect brand instead of a brand that's active, growing, and can make mistakes and can be nimble, right?
And that's a really, really good point too. That's just, I mean, if you can, it doesn't even matter what you're doing. If you can add value in it, man, you're going to get paid for adding that value, because the market is always going to pay you what you're worth. Right. And that's even to a lesser or a service level too, just looking at employees versus a business owner too. Employees get paid based off what they're worth. So do the business owners, right? I mean, if you're working as a cashier at McDonald's, you're getting paid that minimum wage because that's what society values as what you're worth, right? But when you're the CEO of McDonald's, or you're Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, you're getting paid because of the value that you're bringing to society in that regard. I'm not talking, there's a difference between value and valuable. I'm not saying you're not valuable if you're working at McDonald's, but just in the regard of the value that you're bringing. So that's a really, really big point. I hope people.
I mean, you're close to making me get in that argument about that $15 an hour. You're getting close, because that thing burns me up. There are a lot of people who in our society, well, I showed up, I should live well, and you're like, no. These trophy kids have ruined it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people. There's about, let's be very clear, only about 3 million people in the whole United States makes minimum wage. And out of that 3 million, I think 2 million are older adults. The rest are like young college age. Those jobs are always meant to be transitional.
Yeah.
They were always meant to be transitional. They were never meant for long-term placement. You know, the average fast food worker right now is 36 years old. And so that's the average age, and that's the median. I'm sorry, the mean age. That means there's somebody who's way older and some way younger, right? My goal anytime I see this is for you to not say, well, they deserve to pay me more because I have a family and also, no, it's time for you to move on to the new thing. It's time for you to, grow. I mean, even right now in this pandemic where people have been home for 4 or 6 months, people are outside living their best lives, turned all the way up, right? And when people would suggest on Instagram or YouTube, like, you guys got to be studying, educating yourself, preparing yourself so you can come out of this thing better. How dare you tell us we should be studying? How dare you? You're like, because you're broke, because unemployment is running out, because you have children, because you have a family. I'm not obligated. I didn't make those children. I didn't have a good time having them. So I mean, that ain't my time, So you just want to convince the people, like, and that's part of why I made the Rise 20% class. And it's like a mastermind, because I was like, it's all this doom and gloom talk, when really this is just an opportunity for people who are ready to rise up are going to rise up.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who I'm just showing up. Why can't I get $15 an hour? The whole time you're on your cell phone at work. Whole time. Okay. No, you cannot. So sometimes you're like, I hear those arguments and I feel for them because they feel like that's the only thing they have to do.
Yeah.
But mentally, someone has failed them at some point in the process. Maybe themselves, maybe their parents. I mean, every day when I talk to people, I'm like, do you see these things we have in our phone? They're supercomputers. Right. So you can either be on your phone, your supercomputer that you have in your hand, looking at Big Booty Betty, or you can be going to do something with it. I mean, that's just that. That's
girl, Big Booty Betty.
Big Booty Betty, and they be out there just. I mean, do you know how many? Like, there's some guys that would be amazing at sales. Yes. They spend all day in everybody DMs. I'm like, honey, if you could apply that to a sales job, you probably you make 100 racks.
Yeah.
Well, apply that consistency somewhere. Take that energy and put it somewhere. That's
I mean, the society that we live in today, that's why I'm a big believer in the fact that you can come up out of any circumstance, right? Like, you can literally, just because of the society we live in, you can work a job at Walmart, read about stocks or investing or real estate, go Uber for 6 months or a year, save enough money for that down payment, get their first rental property, and that alone literally changes the trajectory of your entire family. And that's the society that we live in. But people rather play victim. A lot of people rather play victim and say, well, I mean, I wasn't born wealthy. It's not available for me, so I can't really go do that.
A really amazing book I read, because I couldn't understand a lot of stuff. As an adult, I couldn't understand people's mindset. And it's called Eugene Robinson's The Disintegration of Black America. That book is not just for Black Americans, it's for all, right? And it was a abandonment class, a mainstream, a transcendent class, and translucent or whatever the other class was. It was up top, right? And so you got the Oprahs, you got the basketball players, you got the football players. They up there, we not even relating to them. That's a whole different life, right? But then you had this transcendent class. And in the book, it was talking about, it was like mulattoes, it was Nigerians, it was the business owners, it was this progressive Black people who are kind of like, okay, well, we're gonna make it do what it would do, right? And it's like these little subcultures, right? And we can all, you know, if you've ever been anywhere and you're like, man, I'm Nigerians, right? Or you go to hospital and they all Nigerian nurses, you know, it's becoming that subculture. The mainstream is this mainstream working middle class that's kind of like going on, doing what they got to do, just enough, not thriving, not suffering, but just enough. And then you have this abandonment class. And in the abandonment class, what it was saying in the book is it used to have factories. And you could go get a job and you could work and you could almost get yourself out of that. But a lot of the abandonment class are people who are underpaid or in part-time work, or just can't seem to get out of that situation, just poverty. What I tell people is, even in America, even in those who are in poverty, I mean, I know they made the joke for a long time, the Obama phones. They even had a smartphone at their disposal to do something. Now, why am I saying that? There are people who could spend a year watching videos on how to trade stocks on YouTube and could change their life. There was just an interview on CNBC Living. The guy's in Baltimore, he's making $25K a year, and he's living in Baltimore. He still lives on his own. He has his own apartment. And his whole thing was like how he was sleeping on couches for a year. He only eats 1 meal a day. And he's still super optimistic and knows that if he could just get that accounting job, like right now he does tax preparation. And he put 13 grand. Now this kid only makes 25,000, but somehow over the past couple of years, put 13 grand into his Roth IRA and his stock account in Robinhood. If he just gets consistent, a little bit more money, he has a whole different life. And so I never believe that we are stuck in a class in America, because this is the country. If you can make it anywhere, it's here, right? And I just think that phones and those laptops are just game changers. And if you can just, I mean, just 1 or 2 or 3 things, you pick them, you really can just knock it out the water. I mean, it's just too many success stories for people to really like give up.
Yeah.
Right. If there's somebody out there doing it, you can do it, kind of conversation.
Yep, I think that's got to be like one of my foundational reasons for why I enjoy the podcast so much. Because really, what we're trying to do is make. I mean, people have the resources, but one thing that is big is that they don't understand that they do have the resources, or that they don't understand how to use them. So I feel like that's one big thing with all the influencers that we have going around, like on different social media platforms. I think that's really going to help change the game for a lot of people, because usually you just, at the end of the day, you just don't know that other things are a possibility out there. Like for you, for instance, you saw the entrepreneurship in your family, so you had at least that to say, okay, I've seen it done before. I know it can be done. After seeing what my cousin was able to do, I know it can be done. Some people, like you mentioned earlier, some people never see that. So I guess it's really good that people can come onto social media platforms and still be that voice of influence, because now you don't have to physically see somebody in your particular neighborhood or your community in order to see things being done. And all it takes is that mindset shift to be like, oh shoot, they doing it. They look like me. I may be able to do something myself. Like now I know it's a possibility for me to do something like that. So I think foundationally, that's one thing that we really need to, I guess, keep in mind, if anything. But that's something I feel like a lot of people need to be able to take heed to, though. And moving on from there, though, I was really wondering, like, I know how your family was, how they viewed you before, like, did they wanted you to just find a safe, secure job? So what has it been like for you and like within your family now, and as far as how they view you, and how are you able to like give back to them and like things of that nature?
You don't want me to find safe, secure something? Nah, safe, secure husband. That's that's they like, okay, well, you got to find us a husband now. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So what's funny is the transcending of the companies and the moving. I think they've been like, oh, Ericka's still doing that YouTube, huh? And then I got put into the article about Black Wealth Renaissance, in like top 30, whatever. And I sent it to one family member. He sent it to like 100 people. Y'all see her? Y'all see her? And so it became real for him because he could see it, right?
Right.
And then on top of that, it was like a family time gathering, and they were like, oh, let's all throw our money in to get crab legs, which is so funny to me because I'm not bragging about family's wealth, but like they got all these rentals. A lot of them have military retirement and pension. And then they are like, oh, let's all throw in on something like it's like they struggling, right? So I was like, don't worry, I'll go buy the crab legs. So I come back with all this shrimp and crab legs and country love oil, probably like $300, $400 or something I spent. I can't remember exactly. But I came in there with all these crab legs and stuff. And they're like, oh, somebody's got money now. Somebody is rich. Like they just had lots of jokes, but it was like it became real because it became it was a real thing. And one time I had gotten a fight with one of my aunts, and I left my ATM receipt on the table because I'm that petty that day. And so she was like, oh, excuse you, right? And you know, just the trucks. I remember I bought the first property in Detroit, and they're like, oh, Detroit, why there? And then now we're on the sixth property in Detroit. Well, you know, as long as they pay the rent, I guess. And so it's one of these things that you'll always be seen in your family's mind as that little kid that was,
Ericka.
You know what I mean? That little kid that was eating at the table. Like it's a lot to transcend that in your family's minds.
Yeah.
But that's just life, though. My goal at this point is my nephews. Neither one of my nephews born. Well, my oldest nephew not, but the younger two, they've never not seen his mother or me or any of the other family members have a business. That's all they've grown up in. Okay, so my oldest nephew's 13, and he has 30 right now lawns he cuts. My uncle that's retired just drives him around, so he cuts his lawn, so he can do these lawns, right? Well, then his grandpa has a tire shop. His father has an oil change shop. He works there all summer. When the COVID went down in March, that's all he's been doing. Been at one shop to the other shop, cutting grass, one shop. So there's room in society for a vocational. There's room in society for working with your hands. There's room in society if you want to own a business. We gave him 10% in one of the trucks. You know, it's to go into a trust or whatever. And so it's like there's no excuse. There's none. By the time he's 18, he can't be like, well, you know, if I could. You've had every opportunity. You've been shown every different way. There's multiple businesses in the family you could take over, be a part of. And I think that's important because I'm meeting people who have 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who are so lost, just no direction, don't know what they're going to do, don't know what they like, don't know day from night. And I go, somewhere in that parenting, somebody didn't set anything up. They just were dropping them off at school and hoping for the best. And I don't want that for my family. I don't want that for my nephews. But I just think I don't mean to go on a tangent, but I'm very adamant that if you're not giving people direction or you're not helping these kids kind of see where the future's going, you're doing them a disservice.
Yeah. And that's really big too. And I think the fact that you mentioned that kid grew up and that's all he's kind of saw growing up, that's how, you know, generations are changed because it's kind of like that whole thing of you only know what you are kind of accustomed to. And if all you're accustomed to is seeing businesses around you, then that's going to be the normal for you. It's not going to be a risk to start a business or have a business as opposed to a lot of people that grew up with, you know, in that quadrant. And then that's kind of just how the rest of, you know, their lineage is for the next 300 years.
There's no excuse. There's no like, no one ever helped me. No one ever told me. It's out here. It's out here. You can see it.
And that's why I don't even, whenever someone says, because I know Marlon, you kind of just mentioned how like people don't see it. And I know we've had this conversation before and I've always disagreed with you in this, just in the fact of like, even if you don't grow up seeing it, that's never an excuse to me because it's all like, you're always on social media. You're always on Instagram. It's around you. You're just following the wrong people. And that's not nobody's fault but your own. So that's why, you know, that's always a interesting conversation, but that's just my take on that. So we can kind of wrap it up now with the fast five. We will ask you 5 questions and you have to answer them in 30 seconds or less. So the first question is, what does success mean to you?
Flexibility, freedom, choice.
Nice. All right, question number 2. What's your favorite money or business book? You think a lot already. So.
Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki, and also 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, the OG books.
Like both of them.
Okay. Would you rather have $1,000 a week for life or $1 million today?
$1,000 a week for life.
Why is that?
Consistency, projections. Eventually, at some point, you're investing part of that money anyway. You're not going to be like, I'm going to spend all the way up to $1,000 every week. No, still invest.
Okay.
Question number 4: if you could go back and change anything about your journey, what would it be?
Man, that's I'm a big believer in like anything changes, it changes the butterfly effect. I probably would have traveled more. I know it sounds silly, but I would have traveled more. There was a 4-year period in North Carolina where I wasn't traveling at all for whatever reason, but I would have traveled more.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Last question then. Where can people find out more about you?
The YouTube, baby. Ericka Williams. You can just literally type in a search bar, Ericka Williams. I'm the number 2 Ericka Williams on YouTube at this point. Over 1,800 videos. I think we're at 2,000 videos, I'm not certain. Instagram, Ericka's Classy Climb.
This was super fun, man. We really enjoyed getting into your story. There was a ton of stuff in here that we got to unpack, and I'm really glad you kind of eloquated it the way you did and kind of how it unfolded to where you are today. It's really, cool to see, and I think it's going to be really inspiring and really eye-opening because we haven't really got to talk to somebody that has, been leveraging the internet to really make a bulk of their money, and then taking that, putting that into other assets. So I really love what you're doing, and I'm really excited to kind of see where we're going next.
Sure, appreciate it.
Well, that's it for this episode of the Money Monopolizers podcast. New episodes will be released every Thursday and will be available on all platforms. Just search Money Monopolizers wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you learned something of value today, and if you did, we'd appreciate it if you rated us 5 stars and left us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also find out more info about us on Twitter at the Monopolizers, or on IG at Money Monopolizers. We post informative content on there that'll keep you engaged. So be sure to check that out and share those posts. But until then, we're out here.
You've been listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. To learn more about how you can be in control of your money, visit moneymonopolizers.com. We'll catch you next time when Alex and Marlon share more personal finance and wealth creation tips with you. Now it's time to take action.